Morning everyone, and welcome back to the Runpreneur vlog, where we discuss all things entrepreneurship and running. It is a beautiful morning today. Sun is shining, very little wind, about 8-9 degrees, so really nice running conditions, which is good. And it's trying to remember which day of the week it is today. It's Tuesday Tactics today, where we discuss all things business systems and outsourcing. And today's topic is outsourcing your calls. So if you like this video, please remember to give it a like and a subscribe, and let's get started. So, outsourcing your calls. Right, so first and foremost, before we get into the tactics and the nitty-gritty of this, I think it's important to understand where most people will spend the bulk of their time in an unproductive manner. Now, if I go back a few years, when I first started getting into kind of productivity and business systems and outsourcing, and one of the first things I did that everybody seems to be telling me about was time tracking. And this is really interesting, because it opens your eyes to kind of the things that you're wasting your time doing. Let's be honest, it is wasting your time. You might not think it is when you're doing it, but when you actually see it on paper, it's definitely wasting your time. And it's really simple. There's loads of time tracking apps and things out there that you can use, or you can simply use a spreadsheet and just log every half an hour or so what you've been doing during that time. And it is quite opening. And if I remember going back to a few years back where I did this, you can kind of group stuff into kind of group tasks into groupings, if you like. And what they'll do, sorry, thank you. What they'll do is you'll see a percentage of your time spent on certain categories of tasks or group of tasks. And what you want to try and establish is what's the stuff that you're doing that is super high level importance, and what's the stuff you're doing that is administrative or kind of low level work. And if you just start with those two differentiators, you can play around with categories at a later date. But cut a long story short, when I did this and I grouped activities, I grouped stuff into kind of inbound comms. And what I mean by that is anything that's coming to me in some form of inbound, so I don't have control over it. People are coming to me, whether it's a phone call, whether it's an email, whether it's a text message, a social media message, or if I'm working in an office, somebody actually wandering over and disturbing me from doing the stuff that I need to be doing. That's massively distractive work, okay? And it can eat up huge amounts of your time. So much so that when I actually looked into this and I analysed it for the first time, I was spending 75% of my working time on inbound comms, which is crazy. How on earth was I ever going to make progress when I'm constantly dealing with other people's issues and problems all the time, rather than focusing on the goals and the milestones and the important things to do with the success of the business? So roll on a couple of years now. Once you identify these things, you can start putting mechanisms in place to outsource all of these inbound communications. I now don't check my emails. I have a virtual assistant that manages them for me. Okay, I still get text messages, but text messages is dying out compared to WhatsApps and Facebook. So if somebody a virtual assistant managing my WhatsApp messages, I have a virtual assistant managing my social media accounts, so I'm not getting bombarded with stuff. And I also have somebody taking my calls. So all of those kind of mechanisms, I work remotely now, so I try and work more independently, and I have meetings on my terms, virtually, just to kind of shred away that kind of distractive, the amount of wastage in terms of time where you're niceties when you're on the phone to people or meeting people in person and all that stuff, which is important in the right circumstances, but it needs to be on your terms, and that's the most important thing. Because ultimately, if you've planned your goals and milestones for your business, you need to be spending as much time as possible on those rather than things that are pulling and distracting you. So sorry about the long waffly introduction here. However, the moral to the story here is inbound comms predominantly is the biggest time waster that an entrepreneur has to deal with. 75% of my time, I've analysed around 200 people's time trackers, entrepreneurs' time trackers, in my past role in systems and outsourcing, and every single one of them, without fail, had inbound comms as their most wasted activity that they were doing. They're wasting more time doing that than anything else. So when you understand that, you understand the importance of how you're going to kind of deal with it. And call outsourcing is just one kind of spoke, if you like. The others are post management. You know, when you get post, how does that get dealt with? The other one is kind of your social media accounts, calls, emails, people. They're generally the five things that kind of distract you. And you need to have a system in place for each. And you'll find that just by outsourcing this one group of tasks alone will probably give you at least 100% increase in your productivity. So it's at least, you know, for me it was kind of 3 or 4 times my productivity levels skyrocketed. So really important. So onto the granular minutiae of outsourcing your calls. Okay, now most people get caught up in this because if you type in outsourcing your calls into Google, for example, there's loads of these all singing and dances packages to kind of create your own call center and all this side of things. And you know, most entrepreneurs, if small business owners, entrepreneurs early stage of their business, most entrepreneurs I seem to come across don't have a big team. So what's the point of having a massive call center infrastructure in place when you haven't got that? Most people are just looking for, you know, a part-time assistant to take their calls, or a part-time assistant to work as a PA for them. Generally speaking, that's the people that I deal with the most. And you know, this is where you don't have to go complex here. And what I recommend for the person who's just growing their business at the very early stages, something like Skype is super easy to set up. So you need a Skype account, so a Microsoft account that's set up for Skype, and then you kind of set it up as there's an add-on to Skype called Skype Manager. Really, really important you kind of get that set up. Now it's super cheap as well. You buy credit on an as-you-go basis. You only use credit when you make outgoing calls. So if you want to take inbound calls, it's free to do. You can set up your own number. It costs a few quid to set up a number, but it's done, one-off fee. And then people they don't see it as a Skype number. So when people call you, it calls through Skype, but anybody out there with a normal phone can call in, and it just comes in through Skype into your central office. Now the benefit of Skype Manager though is that you can outsource, you can allocate that number to a given person at a given time. So this is the kind of limitation, but it's also you know, a feature, is that only one person can be manning that number at any given point in time. So if you're working on some kind of rotoring basis, you always need to remember to have a system in place so that number is allocated to the person who's on duty to ensure they take calls. Because if it stays with the person who logs off, then calls are just going to go through and get lost. Now, you can have voicemail setups and stuff on there as well. So you can capture, you can record calls and stuff on there as well. So you've got loads of functionality, which is useful. And you get really good analytics as well. So you can start seeing about volume of calls and all these types of things, which is super, super key. So really, really useful to kind of have this data. But it's not something you can have one call allocated to a group of people. So that's really, really important you understand that. Now there are alternatives to that where you can have this set up, and I'll talk to you through those in a second, but they're a bit more expensive and a bit more tricky to kind of integrate into your infrastructure, whereas the Skype Manager setup is super easy to set up. Just going past some people at the moment, so just bear with me. Morning. So that's Skype Manager, and that's what I use still in my property business. It works super well. I can then divert all my private calls to that number, and I have a PA who is manning that number, I think for 18 hours every day. Not the same PA. We rotate who's manning the calls. But what that enables me to do is to not get distracted by people calling me up. And somebody's taking the call, so if it's urgent, they can reach me, usually by Slack, and I can jump on anything that's urgent. So you have got that kind of contingency in place. The other thing you can do as well is, if I use obviously a Asana is my project management software, and we have I have a paid version of Asana. So I have forms, which allows you to standardize the way you input tasks into Asana. So I have a call form basically. So every time someone calls, we have who it is, we take their number, we take it, if it's about a property, we have a drop down for the property so we can sort the data accordingly and what the issue is. And then we drop that into an outstanding works project in Asana, which gets progressed every day. So that it's like a ticketing system that ultimately. So once a call comes in, we also have text messages outsourced as well, which I'll talk to you about in a separate vlog. It's called ClickSend, and all of the text messages come into Asana as well. But what you're getting is all of your inbound comms coming into one place, and then you have your team able to progress and deal with them accordingly on an ongoing basis, and progressing them through to completion. You can also set things up so that you can have a call with Skype. You can set it up so that you don't receive inbound, but only the ability to make outbound. So there's loads of functionality you can kind of do with it, but it is game changing when you get it in place, and it's pretty easy to do. I mean, it's not hugely difficult by any stretch to set this setup up. I think the key part of it is how you capture the calls. Obviously you've got the basic analytics in Skype, but what you want is every call to be logged into your operations hub, project management task software or task management software that you're using, so that nothing's lost and progressed through to being completed. And I think that's really, really important. You make sure you've got that part of it set up before you roll this out. Now, if you've got a big team and you want multiple people to take your phone call. Now, I used to use HubSpot as my CRM. I don't anymore. I use CloudTalk now, and we're not building up to a big call center at the moment. But previously, I had it set up so that I was using HubSpot, and we had a few people taking calls in Systems and Outsourcing. And the app I recommend is CloudTalk, and that integrated really nicely with HubSpot, which was the CRM that we were using, and it would log the calls against each record, and you can put it into your pipeline in HubSpot. Now, I now run all my CRM activities through Kartra for email marketing, but pipeline stuff I run through Asana. So I haven't quite got to the level now yet where we need this kind of functionality, but as soon as I outgrow Skype, I'll be looking at CloudTalk first, because I'm familiar with that platform and it's super user friendly and easy. A little bit more expensive, but you can have one number that multiple people have access to. So when it rings, it's who answers it first, basically, which is a pretty cool function when you start growing your team, and you can't do that with Skype Manager. So, but again, the beauty of running it and integrating with a CRM, the CRM is like the operations hub for a potentially bigger business, and again, all the calls are logged against each record. You can create follow-up actions and make sure nothing's missed. So, I hope this is useful, but I think to summarise, understand that outsourcing calls is a major distraction to so many entrepreneurs, and the sooner you do it, the sooner you're going to get more time to focus on higher value or more productive tasks, more goal achieving tasks that are going to be contributing to achieving your goals and milestones as a business. Number two is you don't have to go for anything complicated. Skype is a really simple solution and it works really nicely. So simple is better. That's number two. Number three, make sure that you capture the call data so that you can action and follow up action. You want to kind of think of it as a ticketing system, a help desk system. So you need to have that understanding that every call that's logged, if it's signed off there and then, still have that task created and then complete it straight away. However, if there's follow-up actions, it needs to be logged and outsourced to the required person to kind of deal with. So it's really, really important you understand the kind of follow-up process to resolution of the ticket. And fourth, when you start getting a bigger team, there are more bespoke packages that kind of link with CRM packages and call answering services that are better for groups of people. But to get started, I always recommend Skype and Skype Manager. When you get a bit bigger, something like CloudTalk, which is a super easy one to implement. There are loads of super technical ones which you'd kind of get lost and confused trying to set up, and how you integrate it with CRM, etc. But I think the last one is you need to know what software you're using because that is going to have a big impact on what you choose to integrate with it. And however you slice and dice it, call answering software will need to be integrated somehow, even if it's manually. It will need to be integrated with your existing setup to ensure that nothing gets missed. And the final one is outsource your personal calls as well. Why not? If you've got an assistant who's doing it and able to contact you with anything urgent, why wouldn't you? It's just taking another distraction out of your day. So hope that's been useful. As always, if you have any questions on this stuff, drop me a comment. I'll respond to everyone. If it's a bigger topic, I'll still respond, but I'll potentially do a separate vlog episode and tag you in. If it's not for you, no drama, just unfollow. But before you do go, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, whereby I cover a wide range of topics, and they're all nice and neatly catalogued by playlist. So it's a completely free resource that you'll be able to dip in and out of at some point in the future. So please make sure you do subscribe. And also make sure you're a member of the Facebook Runpreneur group, where all the free resources of this vlog are published completely free. And the first one we've published is my 70-step process for my social media content repurposing, reformatting and optimization process to be omnipresent across all platforms in the correct format in an optimized fashion. So if you're looking at creating content and putting it out there, you want to check that out as well. So just go to the Facebook Runpreneur group for that. And that's it for me. All that's left to say is the Runpreneur blog was set up to help entrepreneurs, business owners overcome the emotions of stress, anxiety and overwhelm by using exercise, and in my case running, as a mechanism to control, manage and thrive under these emotions that every single entrepreneur and business owner experiences. The difference between success and failure can often be down to how well that entrepreneur deals with these emotions. The ones that do it well have a kind of a pressure release mechanism to manage these emotions, control them, get clarity, focus, and then thrive and grow and move on to bigger and better things. The ones that don't, bottleneck everything up. It's like pressure in a pipe. It builds and builds and builds until something breaks. And I call this entrepreneurial pride, because the entrepreneur is so proud they don't reach out for help, and one of two things then breaks. It's normally the entrepreneur or the business. Unfortunately, in either of these scenarios, it's often terminal to the likelihood of that business lasting the test of time. Now, I've been there. I've lost multiple businesses because of this. I've had business partnership breakups because of this. And I feel now I've finally got a process in my life where I can process it, what's going on. I can let it go. I can release it from the tension of my mind. It feels a weight off my shoulders. I'm not bottlenecking things anymore. And as a result, I'm taking on more now than I've ever done. I'm happier than I've ever been. And I've got more on the horizon than ever before. But most importantly, I feel completely in control, which is super, super important. So my pledge to you is, if you are an entrepreneur struggling with entrepreneurial pride, you've got no one to turn to, just drop me a message. There's no catch here at all, no sale, no email, no nothing. Okay, all I'm going to do is jump on a call with you and try and give you some help from my experiences and how you can manage this better, and hopefully get you back on the pathway to success. Because I've always said, if this vlog just helps one entrepreneur or saves one business, then it's been 1,000,000% worthwhile. So don't be stubborn, there is help there, and often it's easier taking it from a stranger than nearest and dearest, as I've found and experienced in the past. So that's it for me today, and all that's left to say is, please remember to subscribe to the vlog if you like this content, and give it a like as well. And don't forget, if you want to see similar content, to go and check out the playlists as well. And I'll end as always with, stay positive, stay happy, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.